Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, March 14th, 2024. This is live stream 1033. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And I will usually pontificate a bit about something going on in our hobby. But we are certainly not engaged in rocket surgery or anything along those lines. So once again, just hanging out, having a good time. Do want to mention that when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live show, so that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. One of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours in order to take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of those more unusual commenters at bay. But if you actually meet that two items of criteria, say howdy. Shoot me a question. Throw in a comment. If there is something you would like to chat about after the news segment about what's going on in the hobby, by all means, fire away. So first out the gate tonight is our good friend of the show, the Madman. He is with us, as is Kevin King, Jose Fernandez. Geraldine is with us, the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D., who is also another one of our chat moderators, alongside the Madman, is also chiming on in. So Geraldine said it's been a hell of a week. They're glad they finally made it live at least once. You're preaching to the choir as far as having a hell of a week. Yes. W. Forge and Matthew Constantine are also chiming on in. So I will point out that tonight is going to be kind of a shorter show than usual. For one, I only have 3 news items because that's all I had an opportunity to put together, because we were finally wrapping up everything that needed to be done after the scammers wrote a bogus check into my dad's checking account. So I had to actually call England again. You may recall I was talking about that yesterday. Then we went over to the Social Security office, which that was a nice long wait. So, I mean, it was jam-packed and not much we could do about it, but there we go. There we go. So only 3 news items tonight. And I haven't packed for the Founders and Legends event that Elliot and I are actually heading out to tomorrow. He actually told me he's getting off early from work, so we're actually leaving a bit earlier than I had expected, probably by a couple of hours, maybe 2-3 hours earlier than I had thought. So I got a lot of stuff ahead of me. I have to break down the overhead camera because that's what I'm going to bring with me if I'm doing any interviews or anything like that. I got to make sure all the batteries are charged for not only the camera, but also for my wireless microphones. Got lots and lots of things to take care of before we leave tomorrow. So we're probably going to clock in at an hour or less tonight, just so you know. So Gerlin says they are 3 days into ditching nicotine. Wish them luck. If I may make a recommendation, if you are trying to quit, I certainly recommend talking to your doctor and asking them to prescribe you Wellbutrin. So I forget what the primo cost, the brand name of it is, but the generic is known as Wellbutrin, and that's how I quit. So of course, having a heart attack, kind of, edged me along to doing that. And then, of course, also needing triple bypass not too long I guess, 2 years later? Kind of gives you incentive. But I'm telling you, the Wellbutrin really, really helped. Really took the edge off. So consider it. Talk to your doctor about it. Sly Blue Demon is with us. Carolyn says, I can't take it. Gives me awful nightmares. Wellbutrin is different than the ones that the main one that they happen to prescribe now. Because Wellbutrin is actually an antidepressant that they found actually helps alleviate the nicotine cravings. So it's not, I forget the name of the one that a lot of people try. And yes, I had a friend of mine who was trying to quit smoking. Same thing. Started taking it, and they had these just not nightmares, but just super weird, vivid dreams. And they're like, no. Perkins Dearborn is joining us in chat. Let's jump on into the news, because even though I've got only 3 news pieces, they're pretty big. So we're going to kick off with a reprint of A Most Fearful Sacrifice 2nd edition being up on Kickstarter from Flying Pig Games. Here's the scoop. Step into history with A Most Fearful Sacrifice 2nd edition, a tabletop war game that plunges you into the heart of the Battle of Gettysburg. Designed by Herman Lettman, who just happens to be a good pal of mine, and set against the backdrop of July 1st, 1863. This edition captures the intensity of Union three-way. But somebody should check the grammar on this. So let me read this the way it's supposed to read. This edition captures the intensity of this 3-day American Civil War battle that decided the fate of this divided nation. What's new in the 2nd edition? Well, to be clear, this is a reprint of the 2nd edition of this award-winning game. The 2nd edition boasts significant enhancements over the original game based on player feedback. There are rule... There you go. There are rule revisions. Told you, it's been a long day. Expanded and larger player aid cards, combat results tables, terrain effects chart, close combat events, and sequence of play cards. And improved scenarios make this edition an immersive and refined gaming experience. Now, this edition also includes 2 bonus scenarios, which are not included in the original game. They are the Long Road. Everyone knows that Lee hung around on July 4th, hoping that Meade would attack. Never happened. But in this variant, it will. Meade Attacks is a complete day 4 scenario stuffed full of what-ifs like rain, force location, and more. There's also Summer Thunder, a free-for-all scenario in which opposing players pick when and where their forces will enter, and you gain the most intense meeting engagement in American history. A Most Fearful Sacrifice is for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, Plays in an hour or more, or far more, depending on the scenario. And once again, this Kickstarter is for a new reprint. Now, it is very close to its funding goal, and you can save $40 off the retail price by reserving a copy for a $95 pledge through March 26th. So this is a very quick Kickstarter. It's only, 11 days left to it, I think. Now, it indicates the expected delivery is April of this year. Oh, no. There's no way this is possibly going to be shipping in April. Now, I had reached out to my friend Mark H. Walker over at Flying Pig Games. He has not gotten back to me because I reached out and said, hey, Mark, you're indicating that this is going to be delivered this April. I'm like, that's not correct, right? It's April 2025, right? There's a couple of news pieces tonight that's kind of up in the air about when things are going to arrive. But this is an award-winning war game. This won the Charles S. Roberts Game of the Year, I believe, in 2022. And that's saying something, saying that it came from Flying Pig Games. They are not necessarily a huge wargaming entity. I know Mark has been around for a long time. And of course, my pal Herman Lutman, he has his following as well. But it says something when a smaller publisher wins the Charles S. Roberts Award for Best Game of the Year. So very nice. Very nice. Russell Higgins is with us tonight. Good to see you. Good to see you. Moving on to our next news piece. Darrington Press will be releasing a new edition of the storytelling game For the Queen in May. Here's what I know. Darrington Press has entered its Queen era. So I guess put on the Freddie Mercury, right? On the heels of Queen by Midnight, they are thrilled to declare that their next game is a new edition of the beloved storytelling game For the Queen by Diana Jones award-winning Alex Roberts, coming to tables on May 14th. For the Queen is a card-driven collaborative storytelling game that invites you to tell a dramatic narrative about a queen's journey with you, her companions. Well, will you learn about her and yourself along the way? In the end, will you stand for or against her? Many at Darrington Press have enjoyed the first edition of For the Queen. It's perfect for playing at conventions and for quick drop-in games. So it's a no-prep sort of game, and you actually learn the game as you play. They've had a chance to work with Alex Roberts on Till the Last Gasp and are deeply honored to work with her again and give For the Queen a complete visual redesign, all new art from talented artists, and an easy-to-use new box and refined card prompts. For the Queen's second edition is for 1 to 6 players, ages 13 and up, plays in around 30 to 120 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $24.99 when it arrives once again on May 14th. Now, of course, I know there's another big Darrington Press news item out there. We'll maybe chat about that a little bit when we finish up the news, because I saw an extremely clickbaity article from Business News. Like I mentioned before, we've got all these websites that are basically worthless now, just throwing out, board game and role-playing game news items just for the clicks. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Forbes. I'm looking at you, Forbes. And now I'm looking at Business News. But we'll chat about that in a bit. So as far as I understand, I think For the Queen used to be from, was it Evil Hat? I want to say it was Evil Hat. And from my understanding, the game is essentially, the setting is like a fantasy world. and the nation that you're from has been at war for a long time, and the queen is actually setting out to some foreign land to see if she can arrange for an alliance to bring another neutral nation into the fight. And I guess you're her retinue going with her. And I guess there's betrayal and things like that, all, based on the cards you flip. You just kind of create the story as you go. I had heard really good things about this. There's another game similar to this. It's about transporting a witch to her execution. So I don't remember the name of it, but I think it's built on the same properties, or at least the same core mechanics, I guess we'll say. So Carolyn says, because they are irrelevant, we're not, as far as those websites and former magazines. All right, my final news piece of the night. The highly anticipated 5e setting Broken Weave has now landed in PDF, and I've got the skinny from Cubicle's 7 games. A brand new post-apocalyptic tragic fantasy campaign setting for 5e. The weave unravels. The gods are dead. The lands are shattered, and the world has begun to forget what it once was. Time and distance have lost their meaning, and the knowledge of how things once were crumbles like ash. Those who remain struggle to survive in a shattered world overcome by decay, an entropic force which eats at our memories, reshapes the world, and twists people into nightmarish abominations. But all is not lost. Hope survives despite the odds. Community, love, and trust in one another can remake the world. Walking the old forgotten paths gives them permanence. Fractured artifacts from the time before spark memories of what once was, and communities gathered to create a new way of life. Broken Weave is a tragic fantasy setting where hope and community are the only path to creating something new. This book includes tragic characters, 6 new and unique character classes fit for the broken world, and a rich life path character creation system that builds a shared history between you, the other survivors, and your home haven. A broken world, a strange and ever-changing world where magic is broken and god corpses litter the land. Dozens of bizarre and beautiful locations to explore. A haven for all. A complete system for founding, growing, and protecting your community over generations. Decayed monsters. A host of nightmarish creatures and mechanics for converting any 5e monster to use in your Broken Weave campaign. Your survival against the odds, because there are new rules for harvesting monsters, travel, a host of new camp craft and downtime activities, and new mechanics for the corrupting force of decay and the flickering light of hope. This is from the award-winning team that brought you Doctors and Daleks, which we will be taking a look at probably week after next, because I'm going to do a Doctor Who week. Yes. And they've also worked on Adventures in Middle-earth and Uncharted Journeys. Now, you can pre-order the 304-page hardcover with PDF for an MSRP of $59.99, or you can grab the PDF right now over at Drive-Thru RPG as of today for $29.99. So here's a little more availability weirdness. This is supposed to be a pre-order. I cannot find anything indicating when this physical book will come out. Now, the PDF arrived on Drive-Thru RPG. It was released today. The physical book shows as being in stock if you order at Cubicle 7 Games. But that is normally not the case. Cubicle 7 tends to release the PDF about 6 months before we tend to see the hardcovers come out. because a lot of times Cubicle 7 actually uses those PDFs almost for proofreading and, errata and things like that can be addressed before these files head off to the printer. I reached out to my contact over at Cubicle 7 Games. I know, yes, it's across the pond, so I did not hear back. I reached out, probably late morning to find out, is this book actually in stock? Because it says it's a pre-order. In fact, the announcement from Cubicle 7 Games says it is a pre-order. You would not be pre-ordering if this was in stock. So it's like, but I can certainly tell you the PDF is available. And if you order the physical hardcover from Cubicle 7, you will get the PDF. I would assume you will get the PDF nearly immediately. I got to say, this looks pretty cool. I am kind of curious how compatible this will be. I'm assuming very, for the C7D20 that is being designed, that had been announced. With Cubicle 7 is going to have their own D20 system that they will be coming out with, which I believe is supposed to support these Vault 5e releases. Don't know. Do not know. I also like the fact, and I talked about this when I interviewed my friend Dominic McDowell at Gen Con last year. I like how this is not a grim, dark setting. This is a dark setting. It is a post-apocalyptic setting, but the future of the world is not set in stone like some grim, dark settings. It's like, well, whatever you do, you're not going to change anything. It's like, oh, yeah, great. Perkins says, Broken Weave looks well done. Interesting idea. Matthew Constantine says they prefer a building, rebuilding world over the magic is going away type stuff. Carolyn says they haven't touched 5e in almost 5 years. They don't miss it either. See, you don't need to take anything for withdrawal from that. That was probably a pretty clean break. Carolyn also points out that'd be how they would use 5e-based resources these days, running BECMI at the moment. But they were running Pathfinder 2nd Edition with Ravenloft. That's cool. Very nice. Prior to that. Sweet. I assume that when this does come out, we will get to take a peek at it. I will be sharing some coverage of it. So very nice. Very nice. All right. That is it for the news tonight. As I had mentioned, only 3 news pieces today because if you were tuning in late, I'm not going to recap everything that's been going on as far as my dad's checking account ordeal. But I think today we finally finished everything up, but it took a good amount of the day to get it done. And had to go like Social Security office and things like that. So did I have enough time to actually put a full show together? Sorry about that. Actually, I don't. I'm not sorry. I don't care. I don't care about you folks. Carolyn says it was as easy as his divorce from 5e as well. Said a good, clean break indeed. W. Ford says they think Cobalt Press is trying to be the new Paizo offering to support 5e when D&D 6e comes out. I don't know. You mean Paizo of old, of course, where it was D&D 3.75, essentially. Monster Core should be in transit. Should be in transit pretty soon. Tessie Trekkie says that you guys hate me too. Yeah. It's an adversarial relationship we have. Flaming Heron is with us. Good to see they've popped on in. So We've got all three of our chat moderators with us this evening. All right. So I was talking about Drive-Thru RPG and Broken Weave 5e being available in PDF over at the Drive-Thru RPG website. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG or Dungeon Masters Guild, Storyteller's Vault, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Of course, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on over to paypal.me/thegaminggang and make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a delicious 2-liter bottle of soda. Oh, it's so good. And cold. Hey, I do want to point out that our good friends, Agile Monk, the Madman, and Joshua Edwards all stopped by paypal.me, the Gaming Gang, very recently and made not small donations. In fact, once again, Joshua Edwards made a $250 donation to the channel. It was like, zoinks! Blew my mind. So thank you all for utilizing the banner ads and or visiting paypal.me, the Gaming Gang. Chris Lundgren's with us. Gerlin says, Tales of the Valiant does look as if it has some potential from the playtest they saw. I did a review of the alpha, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But to me, I don't think there's that much different in it, which that kind of threw me. And I know some folks out there were like, oh, well, you know, there's a lot of differences from 5e. And I was like, yes, I get it. I understand that. But a lot of the things that are in Tales of the Valiant is going to be in this new, this anniversary edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Because remember, that playtest is out. I have not taken a look at it. I didn't take a look at it when Wizard of the Coast liked me. So I'm certainly not going to take a look at it with them not, respecting me in the least bit. But I do understand that we are going to see some of those changes that are in Tales of the Valiant in the upcoming Dungeons & Dragons, which will not be out for the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons. Tessie Trekkie says, note to self, sponsor Jeff to do a page through of thirsty sword lesbians and advanced lesbians and lovers. I have no issue with that. None whatsoever. I don't. People's sexuality doesn't bother me. I'm comfortable with my own skin, so no. I mean, I don't know if Tessie Trekkie's trying to be a wise ass because they hate me. Flaming Heron said, Jeff, I think we had some confusion when you discussed a life well lived a while ago. The book isn't entirely the life path component. Talking about using the downtime away from adventures. I think we had mentioned that. I just did a news piece. I don't really know anything about it. I shared a Kickstarter news piece, and then it arrived in PDF, and I shared the news piece there. So, I mean, I didn't really... Tessie Trekkie says, no, not at all. Seriously, I mean, you know what? We'll talk about something. We'll talk about something a little bit. We'll lay some skin in the game in just a few moments because, yes, the dispatch will continue. But first, I think it's time for a brief, well, hold on. Don't forget, PayPal.me/thegamingguy. Now I can say that the dispatch will continue in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
This must be the bad guy's hideout.
The master of deductive reasoning.
Okay, listen up. The movie starts at 7:30. We walk in late, smoking, talking, and throwing trash.
That's real offensive. The people in the theater will be disgusted.
So that's the plan. They're going to try to ruin the movie for everyone else.
What are we gonna do?
I've been saving a special Bigfoot trick for just such an occasion.
Aha! It's the old saving a special trick. Come on, make way.
Last door on your left.
Oh, this is it. Okay, we're here. You can start the movie. What's this?
This is your theater. You don't think they'd let you in with the grown-ups, do you?
Bigfoot, what are you doing here?
Stamping out abominable behavior in movie theaters.
Another fine mess.
Enjoy the show, guys.
Yeah.
If this works, it'll taste better than Wilkins coffee. I guess nothing will taste better than Wilkins.
Make way for the gripper. It's catching on. Hit the gripper with a tricky paddle, but don't get tricked. Use one side to flip the gripper, the other side to grip it. Flip it, grip it. Hang it up. Grab points. Shoot for the edge. The gripper. It's catching on. The gripper ball. Sold alone or in the Whippet paddle set. New from Mattel.
I have to chuckle because that WLS commercial, I remember them showing that before the feature presentation when I was probably early teen, maybe 13, 14. And it's funny because the good guys and the bad guys all worked for WLS, the radio station. They were all on the air. But I also chuckle because of the way they're wearing their hats. And it's funny because a lot of like cheap ass baseball caps were made like that. Like they were just really high. They look ridiculous, but that's how they sat on your head. In fact, that's the reason why I don't wear the Gen Con hat that I got the last year that, oh gosh, what was it? Outer World or something like that was the official sort of like swag merchandiser for Gen Con for years. And they would be at like Comic-Con and stuff like that. I got their hat and it looked pretty decent. It's gray and it just says Gen Con on it. But it just has this stupid ass, it's like a full inch. It just looks like, what is this, 1979? So Matthew Constantine says, seeing these old ads always remind them of the crazy Japanese ads for, see that stupid ass thing is blocking me. the little heart in chat is black. I can't see what it is, but it was something that was with Charles Bronson. Oh my gosh. Burgess Dearborn says they had a gripper. Never saw those before. Never saw those before. So Jose Fernandez had asked if I had talked about Daggerheart. So we'll tackle two topics before I call it an evening. Flaming Aaron says, stupid heart. Madman says they're seeing a trend where the baseball cap is worn over the tops of the ears. No, I'm not doing that one either. Maybe it's definitely not a trend they're following. I couldn't even imagine. Well, just like you got the people who leave the stickers on and things like that. It's like, get out of here. Yes, I understand. MLB will put a hologram sticker on here to, ooh, it's official. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You can leave that on. But the other stuff where it's like, oh, this is a size 7. It's like, no, sorry. To me, that looks pretty asinine. Okay, so the question was, have I talked about Daggerheart? I have not. In fact, when I was doing the news piece for The Queen, which is from Darrington Press, I did mention there was another big news item. That is it. Daggerheart is the big deal. I think a quick start is out in PDF. Matthew Constantine says it was Mandem. It was a cologne. They guess. So I don't know much about Daggerheart. Yes, I get it. I understand it is from the Critical Role crew, which didn't they just release the, what is it? Obscura? It's not Camera Obscura. Candela Obscura, because there is Camera Obscura. That is a term. It's Candela Obscura, if I remember correctly. And I have not seen it. I did not read it. So I can't really comment. But it felt like there were some reviewers out there who were singing its praises, and they all sounded kind of the same. And then there were some other people out there who were saying that it was pretty bare bones and they didn't really care for the system. I was like, oh, it is. Yeah, I thought it's Candela. Candela Obscura, right? Okay. Tessie Tricker says Candelab. It's Photomart Obscura. Photomat. I remember the Photomat little kiosk things. Anyway, I sort of had a feeling that it was one of those games where some of the usual suspects were sitting there just kind of shilling for it. I don't know. I mean, it might be fantastic. It's a horror game. And with the horror games that we already have out on the market, such as Call of Cthulhu and plenty of other very interesting horror role-playing games, you better really come packing to knock the big boys off their perch. And I don't think the game did that, because the reality is there was a lot of hotness around it. I don't hear anybody talking about that anymore. But yes, they are talking about Daggerheart, which is a fantasy role-playing game. So the article I saw, now I did not click on this, I did not read it, but it was sort of like, oh, you have got to be fucking kidding me. And this was Business News. And the headline is, the 8 people who made Dungeons and Dragons cool release their own game. And it was a picture of Matt Mercer and the cast of Critical Role. And once again, I say this all the time, I have no issue with Critical Role. I don't watch it. I don't watch actual play of anything. It's just, I say it all the time, I think it puts an unrealistic expectation in players' minds if they have not played Dungeons and Dragons. That's it. That's all I say. Because, it's essentially D-listers who are either comedians or actors or voice talent or what have you, who put on Critical Role. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's what they were. It wasn't as if you had some A-listers showing up to be on Critical Role. I mean, these people were hangers-on in the entertainment industry, if even that. So it's important to keep in mind that, that's not how Dungeons and Dragons happens at anybody's table. That's where I, have an issue. But people watch it. I don't care. That's cool. Enjoy yourself. But for business news, or maybe it was Business Insider, it was some business site that I have heard of, for them to say these are the 8 people who made Dungeons and Dragons cool is such a slap in the face to everyone who was involved or played Dungeons and Dragons prior to Critical Role arriving on the scene. I don't seem to recall Critical Role being around when Dungeons and Dragons was a Saturday morning cartoon. I don't seem to recall that. But I was like, you give me a break. Give me a break. Jose Fernandez says they look forward to my opinion. That's why they ask. I probably won't even have an opportunity to take a look at it. The reality of it. So there is so much stuff out there. In fact, I have a new reviewer who's coming on board. They're going to do some board game reviews, some role-playing game reviews. And as I point out all the time, I am always looking for role-playing game reviewers. And you get PDFs of whatever's being reviewed, even stuff you're not reviewing. So if it's something that's made available to us for review, all the reviewers get a copy of it in PDF. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, I have somebody who's joining us. I've got their first review. The reality is I've got some reviews from Sammy too. I have not had an opportunity to get them up on the website because of what's been going on here on the home front. So there is that. So here's the other thing that I said, we're gonna lay some skin in the game here. It drives me nuts whenever I see something where it's a role-playing game or board game or what have you, and on the cover, Kabuki Kid is with us. Very nice. Good to see Double K's in the house. W4 asks, does anybody talk about Invisible Sun? I shared a news piece about it. I interviewed Monty Cook about it when it was coming to Kickstarter. That's it. That was it. Chris Lundgren asks, is the $25 Humble Bundle for Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics still going, and how do you get to it? It is going on. It is still going on. I think it's till the end of the month because it's a fairly recent Humble Bundle. You go to humblebundle.com and click on books. Now, I will point out, I don't know if Chris is located here in the States or not. On occasion, there will be bundles on Humble Bundle that are not available outside the U.S. Didn't they do that with I think it was the Discworld bundle that they offered. Sly Blue Demon says there are 13 days left for that DCC MCC Humble Bundle. Sweet. Yeah, and that is an amazing deal. It really, really is. Because just for $1, you can get the Dungeon Crawl Classics core rulebook and 3 adventures. I think the minimum to get all 79 PDFs is $18. And then if you do $25, you'll also get an additional coupon for 15% off anything that you order physically in one order over at Goodman Games website. So take a look at that. So it's not, if I remember right, it's not $25. It's actually $18 if you want the PDFs. Not everything is from Goodman Games, but there is a lot from Goodman Games. Ichiban is with us. Welcome aboard. Good to see you once again. All right. So anyway, I was going to say, it drives me nuts when I see artwork or mock-ups, previews, things like that for various different games. And on the cover of the game, they have a person of color. And all of a sudden, out of the woodwork comes these festering maggots. We're like, oh, it's woke. Oh, this is too woke. Oh, it's woke. And it pisses me off because those individuals are essentially telling us, they're telling everyone that, well, you know what? People of color are not welcome in our hobby. And I have sat for years having to fight with people about when I was growing up and I was a kid and we were in a gaming club and things like that, that we weren't gatekeeping anybody. I get really tired. I've mentioned this before. I get tired of people who weren't around and had nothing to do with the hobby. They maybe weren't even alive when I was first getting into board games and role-playing games, telling me how we gate-kept people out, because that was not the case, because we were dorks. Thankfully, I didn't look like a dork. I might now, but when I was, in my teens and late teens, early 20s, I looked like, just about the average Joe on the street, right? I didn't have a big beard, neck beard, wearing flannel shirts, big belly, glasses, things like that. No, I looked like, you're regular Joe. So I didn't, fit that stigma or whatever, but we still were gamers. So we would play games all the time. And it just drives me nuts when I have to listen to people say that and then turn around and watch somebody just go ape shit because there's an African-American woman on the cover of some fantasy role-playing game. And that's usually what we'll see. We'll usually see if there's a person of color being represented, it tends to skew towards an African-American Black woman. And then all of a sudden, these people just, I can't stand how woke these games are now, blah, blah. And it's like, the fuck is wrong with you people? Do you turn on the TV and you're like, oh, there's Black people in this show. Oh, fuck, man, I'm not watching that. I had a grandfather who was like that. I'll be the first to admit. It was like if, like the Jeffersons, this is going way back, right? He wouldn't watch the Jeffersons. If a show had like the lead character on the show was African-American or Hispanic, which you didn't see a lot of Hispanics, but didn't watch them. Wouldn't watch those shows. He didn't mind if they were, like a secondary character or guest stars and things like that. But no, didn't want to watch shows that were focused on, like Sanford and Son, which is just hysterically funny even today. It's aged fairly well. No, absolutely no way he was going to watch that. W. Ford says, I think Mike Pondsmith would have to question that kind of gatekeeping. Do me a favor, W. Forge, and get in a little more detail what you mean by that. Kabuki Kid says, shocking how rampant racism still is in our world. I mean, I understand everybody's got some prejudice. It's impossible to get away from that. And anybody who says, well, I'm not prejudiced in any way, shape, or form, they're full of shit. Because everyone bases things on their own experience. So there is prejudice. And you have to work past it sometimes. But there's a big difference with having some prejudice and being fucking racist. And yes, I'm sure I'll get comments on this video. Oh, Jeff, you bleeding heart liberal. Oh, you wokey. It's like, oh my God. Tessie Trekkie says, most older gamers, 50 and older, are cool. But as a millennial, around 40, I sometimes notice that certain grognards aren't comfortable around women, non-white people, or openly queer people. Yeah, I can understand that. So you have to look at some things as far as Chris Lundgren says, go Cubs go. If you look at, see, what I always try to do is I try to visualize before I get all pissed off about something. I try to think, okay, why is this person coming from where they're coming from? But say, as an example, when I was talking about people like with the neck beard, which I find so creepy. Oh, just freaks me out. Something else I can't stand, you see a lot with some gamers out there, how they don't shave the back of their neck. It's like, oh, that is gross. It's like, oh, hate that. They're not comfortable around women because they're not used to dealing with women. They're not comfortable around people who are not white because they're not used to being around people who aren't white. And they aren't used to being around people who have a different sexual orientation than them. And they're not comfortable with that either. And I would say, just from my own personal experience, and I mean, I've had people ask, send me emails and ask, if I'm gay. And I'm like, no, not. I'm about as straight as you can get. But I have had a lot of friends all over the spectrum, even before they had names for bands on that spectrum. And I think a lot of times, especially with men who are not used to dealing with people who have the different sexual orientation, they're all freaked out that that queer person's going to hit on them. And how are they going to deal with that? And it's sort of like, you have looked in the mirror, right? It's like, whoa, you can't get laid in a whorehouse with $500. I highly doubt this gay person is going to be like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, I like bears, but I don't like filthy, dirty, smelly bears. Matthew Constantine says they grew up in Maine, the whitest state in the U.S. Yeah, but they still do lean, they lean to the left. it certainly skewed their way of seeing things, but they also grew up. Exactly. Kabuki Kid says, yeah, how dare you act inclusive, Jeff? I look at it this way. I mean, life is only so long. I understand this. I guess I don't think a lot of people out there realize it. And they don't realize it until like maybe when they're in their 80s. That it's like, this is a finite amount of time. So why invest the time and energy into hating people for no reason? Makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. But there are a lot of people who are like that. Carolyn says they're old and queer. I hate everyone equally. Yeah. What was the old line that went, I'm not racist. I hate everybody. That's an old one. Kabuki Kid says add in some butt cleavage and you've got a perfect stereotype. Yes, neck beard, all the crap here. Just a regular beard too with like pieces of like snack hanging in it. Man says, I've always hated when I've had to go into the thumb area of Michigan. A lot of racism, white supremacists, and militias. And they aren't shy about their feelings in public either. And unfortunately, we now live in a society. And when I say society, I don't just mean here in the United States. This is everywhere. Maybe not everywhere, but this is in far, far too many areas of the world that we have this jingoism, this nationalism, and then we also have this fear of the other. And I'm going to blame everybody else for my problems. And part of it is that the people we have looked to for leadership, for the most part, over the past 30 years, have never had the balls to tell us what's really going on. They don't have the stones to tell us the dirty truth that, you know what? You don't have a job because you're not qualified for a job. It's not because someone else came along and stole that job. Oh, these migrants, they're taking jobs away. Yeah, you used to hear that about the Mexicans. The Mexicans are taking all the jobs. The Hispanics didn't come and take jobs. Hispanics didn't come from Mexico and suddenly get hired to make $75,000 a year. No, they came in and they picked fruit and they cleaned dishes in the back of the house of a restaurant. Maybe they luck out and actually get to become line cooks in a restaurant. But for the most part, you usually find them washing the dishes and bussing the tables. So those folks out there who complain all the time about, well, they're taking our jobs. Yeah, they're taking the jobs nobody else fucking wants. See, that's something else that just irritates me. Yeah, goddamn it, I'd be CEO of AT&T if it weren't for them migrants. It's like, what are you, nuts? So I think that's part of the problem, that in order to get elected, that individuals have sat there and just blamed the woes that certain groups have on the other. Fear the mutant, right? Fear the other. They're different. When the reality is there are far, far more complex issues taking place. It's like, migrant crime. Oh, migrant crime. Really? Crime rates are down. See, nobody wants to talk about this kind of stuff. It's just, it's their fault. You don't need to look in the mirror. You don't have to figure out, the reason why your life is what it is because of the choices you have made, or maybe the opportunities you have not had. I do understand that. A lot of times, it's not a joke when people talk about how opportunity knocks, and when it knocks, you better answer. because it doesn't come swinging back around again. It's not the Girl Scouts selling cookies swinging back around to see if maybe you're home from work yet. No. If you don't take the opportunity, you miss out. So, unfortunately, yes, as Kabuki Kid had pointed out, there is just, I mean, it's so much rampant racism that just, and now it's just, people don't even feel any shame in it. It used to be that, you know, people would say, oh, nobody's around. Yeah, I know you fairly well. Hey, XYZ. And he'd be like, whoa, man, can't believe you told me that. Now it's just like, give me a bullhorn. XYZ, XYZ, hey, everybody, XYZ. John Muscola is with us in chat. I know we've had a few people popping on in. I know there are the people out there, not everybody, not all of you, but there are some folks who stop in and check out the shows and that they just hate when I talk about this kind of stuff. I get emails, I get comments that I usually delete where it's like, just talk about games. Shut up about the other shit. Just talk about games. And my response to that is, you know, there are plenty of channels out there tackling games. Enjoy. All right. Kathy Evans said they had an 8-week training on diversity dealing with this topic. That can also be kind of a pain in the ass. So, and I get it. I mean, you know, sometimes there's overcorrection on the other end too. I don't know. When did people stop having any common sense or common decency? Have you no decency, sir? Garen says, thank you. My time and energy are limited. I'd rather spend it in ways and on things which bring me joy rather than otherwise. And let's be honest. I mean, you know, things overload people too. It's not like I don't get pissed off. You've seen me. I mean, I don't get like insanely mad, but you've seen me kind of ticked off about stuff on an episode of the show. And I'm one of these people where it's like, I get it out of my system and then I move along because I'm not going to sit there and just let that shit rot me from the inside out. Matthew Constantine says, I can deal with the neckbeards so long as they showered. Oh, I'm with you on that. I've mentioned before that years ago at Gen Con when it was up in Milwaukee, there were a few years where we would get up there the night before to get our passes. And then in the morning, people would be in line and there would actually be people out there handing out little bars of soap like you would get at a hotel. And it'd be like, I remember it'd be wrapped with a sheet of paper that said, use this. It's like, all right. Who else did I miss? Doom Colonist is with us. Good to see you. Okay. Doom Colonist points out, lots of truth in this discussion. I live in a part of the UK where that kind of thinking is pervasive. Lots of open racism here. Makes my head and my heart hurt. Yeah. Like I said, a lot of times I try to, if I know the person in any way, shape, or form, I try to see where they're coming from, as opposed to just being like, oh, you piece of shit. Now, there are a lot of pieces of shits out there. There's plenty of pieces of shit. But, you know, and you know, like I said, it's so many voices whispering in people's ears that it's not your fault. You didn't have anything to do with this. It's like, I've mentioned this before, how I never understand people who will vote for politicians who stand against the voter's interest. I don't get that, but once again, it's because, you know, depending on where you go and get your news and the sorts of people that you converse with and you have in your life. Oh no, you didn't lose your job because the company went out of business. That's not why. It was their fault. Anyway, Gerlin says both common sense and decency long ago stopped being terribly common. W. Ford says, one of my favorite mottos, be nice to the people on the way up because you're going to meet the same people on the way down. Yeah, and some of them, if you didn't treat them right, they're going to kick you a lot further down. Mammon says, they remember once in the Coast Guard, the officer in charge had to give someone soap and tell him he had to use it or be written up. Yeah, I knew somebody. I will not say who. It's not Elliot. So don't even worry about that. They just didn't like to take a shower. And you'd be near them and you'd be like, holy, what is that stink? Why do you smell? I don't know. I have no idea. And they would have, they had pimples and stuff. And it's like, you got to deal with this because I'm not going to sit here in your stink. Matthew Constantine says, I was scared of the big city and just generally other places because in a small town, fear of the outside was pushed hard. The old saying is, you should live in New York at least once and leave before it makes you too hard. And live in San Francisco, or maybe it's just California, at least once and leave before it makes you too soft. For the most part, big cities, I would live in a big city in a heartbeat. I have in Chicago for over 30 years. I'm not in Chicago any longer, but I would live in a big city in a heartbeat faster than I would a small town. Just for one, because of entertainment options. But I mean, I understand a lot of times small towns, cost of living is a lot lower. It's a lot more affordable. Yes, W. Forge says, he must be king. He doesn't have any shit on him. Chris Lundgren says, we were geeks and such. I was lucky. Most of my RPG friends were jocks, and I was their DM. One time, the local bully tried to beat him up, and the football team came out to protect them. So he was lucky. Burgess Dearborn says, internal loss of control versus external. I think it's supposed to be loss of control, locus of control. People tend to blame their problems on outside forces and the other. Yeah, fear the mutant. Fear the mutant. Matthew says they moved to the D.C. area. It's probably the smallest city they'd ever want to live in again. 30 years in a small town, that was more than enough. Yeah, I can understand that. I had relatives who lived in various places. I mean, trust me, like everybody, I have relatives who are racist. None of them are, shouted from the rooftop racist, but they're racist. Racists have a certain language that they use to kind of feel out if you might be, you might be a fellow traveler, I guess I'll say. All righty then. So, fairly long show tonight. I didn't think we would actually hang out this long. But yeah, once again, it just irritates me when I see people in the hobby. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some times where we see game releases where it's kind of like, okay, there's a difference between being inclusive and pandering. And sometimes we see some things where it's like, and even people of color will sit there and say, really? Come on. But to see people get all bent out of shape over a game and artwork for a game or the cover of a game book, It makes absolutely no sense. None whatsoever. All right. Last comment I will actually take a peek at here. Chris Lundgren says, I never saw any gatekeeping in the 80s with your gamer friends. Neither did I. And I know a vast majority of you out there who are watching either live or after the fact didn't encounter it either or did not take part in that either. Now, I'm not claiming it did not happen. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm sure Mike Pondsmith could tell us stories that would turn your hair white. I'm sure Chris Spivey can tell us stories where I'd be like, holy shit, really? It's just most of us were lucky that that's just not the sort of people we are, which is one of the reasons why we enjoy the hobbies that we do. It's like someone had commented, they can't understand people who sit there and go, oh, I love Star Trek until it got woke. And it's like, well, if you're going to, and I hate that term. For one, I hate the term because people actually have acquired it from people of color. It's like, okay, you appropriated that from them, and you're not using it in the correct situation or tense or whatever. But yeah, when people are like, yeah, I used to love Star Trek, and then it got woke. It's like, really? I mean, Star Trek was always woke, if you want to use that term. It was always pretty welcoming. I remember real quick that they almost had a storyline on The Next Generation, which dealt with AIDS. But of course, it would have been, a Star Trek version of that. And I guess it got really close to getting produced. And then I guess Paramount was like, no, better not. Madman says most of his wife's coworkers in her 33 years have been black, and he feels he benefited significantly because of it. So he can see far more through their eyes. See, that's it too. I mean, you have to surround yourself with a variety of different people to experience the melting pot that this country is supposed to be built upon. So, but, to be a melting pot, you have to melt a little, right? Isn't that usually how it works? All righty. So I'm sure there'll be some interesting comments I'll be deleting from this episode, but that is it for this time out. Yes, tomorrow we will be heading on up to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin for the Founders and Legends Convention. I don't know if I'm doing any sort of interviews or anything like that, but I am going to bring my camera and, one of the cameras and wireless mics and stuff like that. See what we get, see what we do. Worst comes to worst, maybe Ellie and Niall just kick back in front of the camera and talk about, our experience at the con. I don't know. We'll see. Matthew Constantine says, have fun deleting comments. Oh, there'll be at least one. At least. And it'll be fucking nasty. Because they usually tend to. Doom Collis says, delete with prejudice. Well, as I said, everybody's got a little bit of prejudice. Anywho, if you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat and listened to me rant and rave for the last, 40 minutes, a bigger thank you. Because for one, you're keeping each other company while I'm going about doing my thing. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. It doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you kindly for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. As I see Rogue Thinker was with us in chat. Thanks for hanging with us tonight. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Don't forget, be sure to Give the video a thumbs up. Comment if you have an opportunity. That helps spread the word. So, yes, happy St. Patrick's Day. Yes, that's why I've been wearing the Irish hat this week. It'll go back into a corner for another year now. Although I think I'll bring it up to Lake Geneva with me and wear it on Sunday. Anyway, I was going to say, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as today's review of The Walking Dead role-playing starter set from Free League Publishing. And I think you might be surprised at my review score. Yes. Anyway, I gotta also point out when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on the channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. I will be back on Tuesday. Might be another kind of short show because all depends on how much energy I have left after this weekend. I'm sure it'll be fine. Flaming Heron says, skips to the review score. Don't you dare. In fact, now that I'm doing shorter videos, I am considering getting rid of the timestamps. Anyway, as I said, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. I will hopefully see you next week. And once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. As always, I hope every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.